Hello guys, good morning. So okay guys, let's start. Yeah. So guys, as you all know, my name is Manan and I am the senior counselor of Unikaksha. And in today's Guru class, we will be talking about the difference between MERN stack and HTML and PHP. Okay, like MERN stack and HTML PHP are both forms of full stack, right? We both these both of things we use for web development. But MERN stack is on trend and HPL, PHP and traditional techniques, right? So for today, we will dive into the strengths and weakness of each technology and help you determine which one is the right choice for your specific needs, right? Like today's, like as we go on the websites like Apple, Samsung, we see many 3D effects on over the website and all, and that is because of the MERN stack. But we see many websites like basic websites, and that is of HTML and PHP. So today we will dive into in the deep and talk about strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so our today's mentor is Karan, and he's a full stack developer trainer at Unikaksha, where he teaches students about web app development. Okay, he's proficient in programming languages such as C++, Java, and Python. He has a sound knowledge in web development technologies, including HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Bootstrap. Okay, he also possesses backend technology skills in PHP and MySQL. In short, he's the best trainer to take this session and answer all your burning questions about full stack development in this session. Okay, so let's start, Karan. You can start now. You can start the session now. Over to you, Karan.
Yeah, thank you for the intro, Manan. So hello everyone. So I'm Karan. Before we dive forward into the details of full stack web development, we want to know what web development is, right? So web development is the process of creating web applications and websites. So what are websites? So anything and everything that are linkable, or should we say like that as a head reference with respect to a HTTP protocol or a HTTPS protocol. So anything that can be viewed over internet, basically. Okay, so anything that can be viewed over internet comes under web technology. Okay, so there are several things, like there are several ways that we can access the information from the internet. One of the ways is to use your what we call as command prompt or terminal in Linux, where we can connect to a specific IP address, which is basically connected to a specific computer or to a specific server, right? Then we can access the files from there, and then we can run some commands in the connected computer. So that's one way of doing it. So that is that is what we call as remote desktop, or we are remoting into a system or creating a virtual system, right? So or VRM. So um, that is related to end-to-end connection, or should we say like point-to-point connection. We are just connecting from one server or one node to a client, basically another node. We are connecting between two nodes. There aren't much data that is flowing through, and also there aren't much nodes available there. There aren't as many participants as we could have, right? So that's where network comes under. So what is a network? Network is much like an end-to-end connection or a point-to-point connection, but the difference is that rather than having only two parties, like rather than having only two nodes participating in the communication and also the uh, you know two-way screening of data or two-way travel of data, we have multiple ways. So we can connect to multiple nodes, right? They are either connected with each other. There are different forms of network. So we have interconnected nodes also, and which means they are connected with each other. So that's interconnection. But we have a centralized connection also. We have a main server right? Which has different clients. So it is like a tree branch. So you have a single tree, right? Tree has a stem, and through the stem you have different branches, right? So each branch is pulling out all the necessary, what we call as xylem, right? So xylem in the sense water canals and also food canals. All the nutrients are being transferred through the stem. So if let's say a leaf or a chlorophyll is producing some kind of nutrients, it passes through a branch and it reaches the stem. From through the stem, the other branches pull out the nutrients. So much like that, we have n number of clients, right? They are connected to a single centralized system, a single centralized server, where the server will decide which computer needs to be connected to which computer, or how the nodes are connected. Okay, I think so. That's what we call as a network. Basically, a connection between n number of nodes. Right now, so there are like two different kinds of network. One is LAN, which is local area network. Local area network is what you see in your school labs or college labs or a research station, where you have the network set up only in the computers situated in a particular physical space. So it is majorly it will be physical. So how you are connected is basically you have 50 systems. 50 systems are connected to a main server in a lab or in a controlled environment. The controlled environment can be of, it can be a college, it can be a school or anything. So it is controlled and it has a boundary, right? The connection cannot be expanded outside the boundary, and the server decides if a new node can be added or not. So that's LAN. Then what we have is www, World Wide Web. This is where web development comes under. So World Wide Web is in the sense it is internet. So it is connected throughout the world. It is much like a local area network where you have a centralized server. But the thing is that there is no physical availability of a centralized server. Instead, we have something called a protocol, which is what we call as a HTTP or HTTPS protocol. Now, so the through the HTTP and HTTPS protocol, we can connect from a node to another node. It is like an open stream. So if you consider, your local area network to be a canal system or a lake system, where the water flowing through is restricted only to a specific physical area, but you can consider the internet to be the it can be the ocean, right? It can be the entire oceans of the world, like all the 7 oceans. They are interconnected. There is no specific boundary in between them, right? You can navigate from a point A to point B, or you can navigate through point A to B to C. So you can communicate in any manner you want. So that is the internet. So in this internet, so if you develop a page or if you develop an application, that is what we call as a that is what we call as web development. So we are developing applications. Basically, we are creating programs for this internet, this world wide web. So every web development technology comes under this protocol. Everything connects through HTTP. Now, since we established that, we also need to know about something called front end and back end. So front end is basically whatever you see on your screen, like all the like the the forms, the images, or the text, the vectors, the buttons, everything that you see on your screen, right? So that is what we call as a front end, right? If a user can see something, that is a front end. So that is what we call as our front end. Then the back end is where the connections happen. So we won't see, right? So how it is connecting, which IP address it is connecting to, we don't know anything about it. And we also don't know where is the data is going to be stored, where the server located. We don't know anything about that part. So that is backend. That, as the name suggests, it processes in the backend, which means it is processes behind the front end. We won't be able to see it happening. So that's why it is called as backend. So since we established this concepts of front end and backend, so how do we connect them both? Because as I told you, we are seeing, we need to see something, because we humans, we drive through sight and feel, right? So something needs to be external. It can't be the communication in between two computers, even though the processing and everything happens between two computers or a server and a client. We want to know what the result is. That's what ultimately the front end does, is right, like we need to see the result. So that's where full stack development comes under. Full stack development is the process of creating an end-to-end connection, or end-to-end, creating an end-to-end application that connects both the front end with the back end. So that connects front end with the back end through a network protocol called HTTP. Now, full stack development has so many things. One of the main applications of full stack development is web application development. Web application development, in the sense, it also includes normal websites as well. So your Amazon, Flipkart, so those are web applications. Gmail, right? Google is a web application. So even single page websites, they can also be they can they can also be called as a web application. The thing is that they are single page rather than multi-page. Okay. Now, since we established the concept of front end and back end, we need to know, like, what are the layers of a website, because the derivative, or it doesn't depend just on front end and back end. We cannot simply say it is a front end and just get away with it. We need to explain, or we need to analyze what are the things that are present in the first layer is what we call as a presentation layer. So the presentation layer contains all the styling, colors, right? What kind of font family you are using, like whether it is Times New Roman or it is sans serif. So those are what we call as font styling. So how much font size do we want for an you know each text? So that also comes under styling. So that also comes under presentation, our colors, our shapes, and also the buttons, like how do you want your buttons to be presented, right? The layout of the page, everything comes under presentation layer. Then what we call as a business layer. No, business layer is where you will perform all your calculations. So let us say you are developing an application to manage uh, like you are developing an application to manage you know like manage the students course, or to manage, if you are to manage list of students, like their performance details of a list of students. So in that, let's say in the presentation layer, you will create a page that displays 5 subjects, total marks, average, grade, right, and the student's photo and everything. But where's the data is coming from? Because in the database, let us say we are storing the marks of each different student for 5 different subjects. Now we need to calculate the total, right? So that needs to be calculated somewhere. So that happens in the business layer. Okay. So that is where we calculate, like, the total, average. So those things happen under the business layer. Then the second one we have is persistence layer. It can also be named as, it doesn't have to be a persistent layer. In some other applications, it will be a network layer. So network layer is the connection between the front end and the back end. So the network layer is what makes sure that there is a constant, steady flow of data between the presentation layer and the business layer and the database layer. So what is a database layer? Oh, database layer is simply as the name suggests, it contains the databases and tables. So what are databases and tables? You might think that both databases and tables are same, right? No. What table is like? Table is a structure that contains fields and records. So what are fields? Fields are basically the labels that you give to the data. So subject 1, subject 2, subject 3, those are fields. And then records is the actual data. So if you imagine an Excel sheet, all the columns would be called as fields, all the rows would be called as records. So that is what a table is. It is like an Excel sheet where you store the all the data related to it, all the data that you want to store, related to your application. Now, database is a collection of tables. They can either be related to each other. Okay, the like the tables in a single database can be related to each other, or they can be related to a different database also. But by default, what a database is, like what does a database means is, it is a collection of tables or collection of records. Okay. Now as we discussed, like how does front end communicate with the back end? So it communicates through HTTP protocol that handles the HTTP protocol, handles all the back end connection and stuff. We discussed all this, but how does actually the HTTP protocol works? Good question, actually. There is this thing called DNS. You might have heard this, you might have seen this in your Chrome setting, or like in your, if you have installed an Wi-Fi, they might have given you this. So DNS is what we call as a, it is abbreviated into what we call as domain name system. Now, domain name system is nothing but a list of all the domains. Domains in the sense, we have unicaxa.com, codeshastra.com, google.com. That is a domain, right? So the domain name system has the list of domains, like it has all the valid domain and their respective IP address. Where does it point to? Where does the main server of the domain exist? For example, Google has server in not only in California, it also has server in um, Bangalore, Singapore, and also in you know in the Delhi area. So it has so many servers. It has regional servers, what we call as. So how does the connection actually happen if that is the case? So the connection happens, let us consider a mobile network system. So it differs from which network you are using, but let us consider a mobile network system. What happens is that whenever you are sending a request, basically whenever you are typing, let's say, codeshastra.com or unicaxa.com into your browser, it sends this request to your nearest tower. Like then the tower communicates to, or this internet service provider. Basically, if you are using an Wi-Fi, it travel through your fiber connection and it reaches your internet service provider server. That server process the information. It processes like what's the request is, whether it is related to a page, or is it asking you to download a file, or it is pointing to a domain, something like that. If it is pointing to a domain, what happens is that it now checks the entire DNS, right? So it goes through the entire DNS, checks what unicaxa.com's IP address is. We cannot see that because it happens in the backend. It collects the IP address information of the unicaxa.com, that domain. Then what it does is it through the internet, so through the network, which we call as HTTP, through that network, it sends a request to that specific IP address that one of my clients, it will give the IP address of your computer as well, is requesting you to connect with you. So if it is a public website. If it is a public domain, it will automatically be connected. If it is not a public domain, what happens is it will check whether the IP address is listed. If it is a private server, it checks in the DNS whether it is available to connect or not. If it is available, it will allow the connection to happen. So through your ISP server, your internet service provider server, you are connected between the server and your computer, which is client. So this is how the connection thing happens. All right. So as I said, like if you can swap out unikaksha.com from google.com, this is how it happens. Now, how does it actually happen in real time? So let us say that I want to search for HTML in Google. So if you search for HTML, what happens is it sends a request, as I told you, through your internet service provider server to the Google server, the nearby Google server or the main server, depending upon load balance. Like it connects through the Google servers. Then the Google server processes the query, the search query, basically which is HTML. It processes the query and it generates a list of results. Here you can see that it is more than 7 billion. Okay, 7 billion results are being generated for the word HTML. So it sends this list of results again back to your system. Okay, not all the 7 billion results, actually only the beginning 20 are the like what we call as the top 20 results or top 10 results. It sends the top 10 results to your computer. Then your front end, it processes the data and it renders a web page for you. It renders a Google result page for you like this. So this is how the communication works. So it is not like the front end sends a request to backend and then backend simply displays the data. No, backend simply sends a raw data information. Basically, just like how if you are drawing, right, or if you are painting something, you might have some tips. Like if you are designing a car, let's just say, you will have a list of, or you will have a data pointing out that it is a 7-seater, it's going to be an SUV, it needs to have a 4-wheel drive system, it's going to be a hybrid drivetrain. So what's the capacity of a fuel tank, what's the capacity of the battery pack, how does the battery charges, whether it is a plug-in hybrid or it is an auto regenerative hybrid. So these are the details there. Using that, a designer comes up with a design. So he basically first starts with the engine layout, where will the engine go, whether it will be front engine, mid engine or rear engine car, or how the drive shaft is going to be if it is a 4-wheel system. So he designs that stuff. It is not like the data is dictating the design. No, the data is simply a tool, right? Sorry, the design is simply a tool through which the data is displayed. The data dictates the design somehow or to some extent, but not entirely. Okay. Now, so how do we use, like how do we, since we have spoken about so many components, right? So we have talked about presentation layer, business layer, then we have network layer, then what we have is basically database layer. So how do we connect? What is the role of all the programming languages that we have here? As you could see, we have splitted front end and back end separately. So the front end is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The back end is PHP and MySQL. But what's the role of HTML actually? Okay, good question. HTML has the role of depicting the structure of the front end. HTML determines in which layout the data is being displayed, and CSS determines the styling of the page, all the colors, size, right, everything is dictated by the CSS. JS is what responsible for the business layer. JS is for functionality. Let's say you are creating a front end with a form. It is a simple login form. Okay, so through HTML you will create all the input boxes, buttons and stuff. Now through CSS you will implement the colors, font size, right? With height, margin, everything is decided through the CSS. Like how much separated do the boxes be, whether it is be horizontal or vertical alignment, or will it be having a background color or not. So that's what determined by CSS. Now, what's the role of JS? The role of JS is that JS takes the data, like when you are pressing the submit button, what happens is that JS will collect the data from HTML, like from the HTML input boxes. It will collect the data that you have entered, and it simply sends it to the backend using something called Ajax or jQuery. This is a feature in JS, which basically sends the information from the front end to the backend, which is PHP, using something called post method. As I told you, HTTP is the medium of communication. That is our river. Now, will it be in a open source model, whether like whether you want the data to be public, then you will use something called the get method. If you want the data to be private, you will use something called the post method. Okay, so using this, the data from JavaScript is transferred to PHP. So what's the role of PHP then? The role of PHP is to collect the data, or to like already sent data. Basically, the received data from JS will now be either stored into the MySQL database, right? MySQL is basically the database that we are using. It will be either stored into the MySQL database, or some existing data will be changed, or the data will be deleted. So those are what the role of PHP and MySQL is. Okay. So as I told you, this is the role of HTML. HTML allows us to navigate through the internet. It allows us to embed images, videos. It also allows us to have hyperlinks. Hyperlinks in the sense, all the links that you see, the blue color with underlined parts, those are what we call as hyperlinks. Then the role of CSS allows us to format everything. So for example, let's take this slide for a moment. Using HTML, what we would do is we will write all this text. Why is CSS use this paragraph, this paragraph? We will use HTML to write all this thing. Now, what's the role of CSS is that it determines what will be the margin from the start to this heading, and from this heading to the next paragraph. What will be the spacing? Paragraph spacing, and then from left to right spacing, and also these circles and this square, and also this sphere, right? What color will they be, or in which, even their shape will be determined by CSS. And also color of this logo, size of this logo, will it be like it is a numbered list here, will it be a numbered list, or it will be a bulletin list? Those are what the functionalities of CSS. Now let us move on to JS. Now JS, as I told you, it helps us do the programming. If you have already done programming using C or C++ or Java or Python, you would know that we need to perform certain calculations, right? So programming languages ultimately allows us to perform calculations. So JS is what responsible for that calculation part. Okay. The programming language JS was developed by Netscape, one of the oldest browsers in history, one of the earliest browsers as well. So it runs in directly on your browser. It doesn't run on your server. It runs on the client side. That's why it is a front-end language. Now, so MySQL is an open source database, where database language that we can use to create our own databases, own tables. MySQL also allows us to specify the data type. Likewise, in front end also, we can also specify data types for the backend part, like which data type do you want the serial number to be. If you want it to be an integer, you can mention it as an integer or a big int or something. And then if you want the name to be a character, you can mention it as a character. So those are the things that you can do in MySQL. So what's next? We have MERN stack. What is MERN stack? MERN stack is not actually, unlike the traditional full stack development. MERN stack doesn't have like a specific control system. MERN stack it's a modular system. Actually, MERN, the word MERN expands into MongoDB, Express.js, React.js, and Node.js. But you can swap out React for Angular if you want to. You can completely ignore MongoDB and use MySQL as well. That can also be done. So MERN stack is more versatile. Already you can see why MERN stack is much preferred than the traditional full stack development, right? You are constrained. You have to use PHP. If you are using MySQL, you have to use PHP. Otherwise, you won't be able to communicate with the PHP server. Okay. Whereas here, you can use any database system you want. It is not restricted to MongoDB. Now, what's the role of MongoDB then? The role of MongoDB is that, much like MySQL, it helps us create collections and then databases, basically tables and databases, that allows us to save data in the server. So that's what the role of MongoDB is. The difference is that MongoDB is an unstructured program, unstructured. Basically, it doesn't have a table-like structure. You can save it as collections or classes. So if you know, it is like a classes. It is an object-oriented stuff. It is not related to tables. It doesn't create tables. Okay, so that's one advantage of MongoDB. Now, what's the role of React then? React is basically a JavaScript library or JavaScript framework that is developed by Facebook. So what React is basically a combination of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript together combined. The thing is that using JavaScript, we can create our own HTML components. Rather than writing the code directly onto HTML, we can create a JS file. And using React libraries, React is not a programming language. React is just a library for JavaScript. Using the libraries in JavaScript, we can create our own web pages and our own HTML content. Okay, and we can style it also. So rather than having 3 different programming languages and 3 different files, like having an HTML file, CSS file, JS file, you can have everything in a single file under a single language too. It can be all be done in single programming language, JavaScript. So it simplifies the entire front-end development altogether. So that's why React is preferred. Now, what's the role of Node.js then? Node.js is much like PHP, but only the difference is that PHP has to be a different file and it has to run on the server. But the thing is that since Node.js, as the name suggests, it is also a framework of JavaScript or a library of JavaScript. We can run it on our client side also. And the advantage is that, again, the advantage is that you are using the same programming language, JavaScript. So you don't have to learn different programming languages. If you learn JavaScript, you can do the entire full stack development using MERN. You don't have to learn 5 different programming languages. So that's the major advantage of using MERN. Then what's the role of Express.js then? Express.js is not actually a different entity or a different, it will not be what we call as module. It is not even a different module. It comes under Node.js. Okay. It is a framework of Node.js. Okay. Express.js is a framework of Node.js. And what it does is basically, it allows us to connect with the server. It is just for connection purposes only. Okay, so this is the sequence of commands, as I told you. First, in a traditional environment, of course, in a traditional environment, what you do is you either submit a button, or sorry, you submit a form, or you submit a button, or you using a JavaScript event, you might trigger something, right? So you might trigger something. So if you are triggering something that creates a request, which then sends to the backend, like basically PHP, and it processes the data there. Then it with the processed data, it connects with the MySQL database, and in the MySQL database, the relevant MySQL command runs. Then it sends the data back to PHP. Then PHP processes the received data from MySQL, and it sends the processed data to HTML and JavaScript, where the data will be now structured and styled using HTML and CSS. So it is a long sequence of commands, and like it's totally like a life cycle of a data. Data gets generated, data gets destroyed, and there is so much processing power being wasted here, both from the client side and the server side. When you are using a a MERN stack, everything happens in a single programming language. Since you don't have to have different compilers and interpreters, basically you don't have to process different programming languages. That allows your program to execute much faster. Since it is executing much faster, you can include much more features into it, and you can also include so many libraries also, right? Since you are doing both front end and back end in a single application, you can now create so your own libraries, basically your own components, and then reuse them for different projects too. So that's one advantage that's the major advantage of MERN. Then the second major advantage is that it has both front end and back end baked in together as a single package rather than having it separately. So what are the disadvantages of MERN then? Disadvantages is that it's efficiency. Since React and Node, Express, everything is a library, you are now at the mercy of somebody else to create a package to support something, or you are basically at the mercy of Mr. Zuckerberg and his company. He needs to support the library. The support needs to be presented constantly, and it has to be open source for a long time. If for some reason Facebook decides that they no longer want to give React and Node for free, Express also, if they decide to do that, you are completely doomed. Your applications will not be. It is not like it won't run. It will absolutely run, but you cannot give updates to it. That's one major disadvantage. The second major disadvantage is that since it has so many things baked under a single application, the points of failure is very high. So the error avoidance is almost negligible. You will always have bugs and stuff. So bug fixing becomes a major issue. And when you are developing a large scale, it can't be modular. Since everything is baked inside a single program, you cannot pull out a component. You can pull out a feature from an existing application and then simply replace it with another thing. That is not going to happen. So that's one of the major disadvantages of MERN. Then if those are the disadvantages, then what are the advantages of traditional full stack? The traditional full stacks allows us, it's a true open source system. PHP is truly open source. It is not controlled by some company. It is not a library. It is an actual programming language. So PHP and HTML, CSS, JavaScript, true open source system, those are available everywhere. And the advantage is that you are directly communicating with the system. So you can optimize your code much more deeply, and you can increase the speed. Even though the processing takes time, you can reduce it using intelligent programming methods. You can reduce it, and it is much more cost efficient as well. Since it is been from the dawn of time, basically dawn of internet, there are so many methods being developed, and there are so many integrations done already with all the existing web servers, all the existing ISP providers, that the protocol that PHP uses, the post method, get method, this become much more universal, that the processing, even though processing seems like it has involved so many steps, it can be done much quicker. So that's one of the advantages of using traditional PHP. The disadvantage is that limited debugging tools. You cannot debug on your using tools. You have to do it on your own. You cannot modify the core behavior. You cannot modify how it communicates with the server. There is only standard protocols available. there are much more easier languages as well. These are older form of scripting languages. JavaScript is much more lenient in terms of programming. It allows the programmer to do things very easily, okay, without putting too much pressure. So that's one of the major advantages of using traditional PHP. And security is not also at the best. You don't have built-in cryptographic systems. So that's so end-to-end encryption is pretty much off the table. So these are one of the disadvantages of traditional PHP. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining the session. I hope you learned something, related to the difference between MERN stack, and also learned something new regarding the traditional full stack development as well.
So yeah, hi guys. Like I just want to ask you like how much you learned. Okay, so I am releasing some polls for you. So like it have some questions related to this session. So what you have to do, you just have to select an answer, and then let's see like how much you have learned. So poll one. So the question is, what is the role of HTML in traditional web development? Okay. If you think the answer is structuring front end, choose the first option. If you think the answer is styling front end, choose the option second. And if you think the answer is adding functionality into the front end, choose the option third. Okay. We'll give you 10 more seconds for this question. Think hard and select the option. What do you think? Okay, guys. So, okay, very well done. All of you have selected the right answer, but I can see only few have attended this question. Like, what are you doing, guys? Are you using Instagram or something else? So let's have another question. So the question is, what is the role of MySQL in backend? If you think the option is first, select first. If you think the option is second, select second. And if you think the option is third, select third. We'll wait 10 seconds for this question. I want everyone to answer this question. Okay. I guess everyone have answered it. So now let's see how many of you have answered it correctly. Okay, like some of you have answered first, some of you have answered third. Okay, the answer is first, creation and manipulation of database tables and structuring of data. Okay, but still I can see like you are not, everyone is not answering the questions. Okay, so the final question for you is, what does MERN explained into? So what do you think MERN is? Okay, select any of the option. The option you will see over here are like MongoDB, Express, React, Node. If you think the first is it is. The second is MongoDB and Node. And the third is MongoDB, React, Node. Five more seconds, guys, for this question. This is really easy. The answer is in the question only. Okay, time's up. So yeah, everyone have answered it correctly. But guys, still, like many of you are not, answering the questions. No worries. So guys, let me tell you a brief idea about Unikaksha, okay? So see, Unikaksha is an online education platform which give you learning of full stack web development. Okay, like right now you are just learn the basics of MERN and basics of HTML and PHP. Okay, but in Unikaksha there are different courses with different facilities for you, in which you are going to learn from basic to the dynamic level, from basic to the advanced level, from base scratch to the deployment level. Okay, you're going to make your own projects over here, like the websites I told earlier, like websites like Apple, like Samsung, which have 3 defects in it. Okay, you're going to make websites like projects like Netflix or Amazon and all. Okay, so over here you're going to learn full stack, which is MERN stack. Okay, you're going to learn about HTML, you're going to learn about PHP, you're going to learn about data structures algorithm and database management system and MERN stack. Okay, which means it is in the trending right now. For to getting a job in IT, it is, right now it is really difficult. You have to learn everything. Okay, like if we talk about full stack development, you have to learn data structures algorithm, you have to learn MERN stack, you have to learn database management systems and everything. Okay, and here we are providing you with every possible facilities related to full stack development. Okay, because right now in the current market scenario, full stack is the only option for you to get a job easily, because full stack is easy to learn and full stack is have many verticals. Okay, like front end, back end, data structures, and as I told you, database management systems. Okay, we have different options to learn it, like recorded sessions, like live sessions, like your one-on-one mentor sessions. We also give you some self grooming classes in English and all. We also give you guaranteed internship. Yes guys, guaranteed internship is included in this, in which you're going to have a hands-on experience in some organization as a full stack developer. And after that, we also provide you placement services if you want. So guys, if you really want to know more about Unigaksha, if you want to have one-on-one session with the counselors, with me or some different counselor, I am releasing a poll. If you are interested to have a one-on-one session, you can select yes. And if you are not, you can select no. Okay. If you want to have a one-on-one session with me or with some different counselors, select yes. Okay. And if you don't want to have any sessions, you can select no. Okay, guys, I'm giving you 10 to 15 more seconds for this poll. Okay, for this question, because it really can help you. I am in this job for many years and I have placed more than, you can't believe, 1500 students in IT, and many of them are in full stack development. Okay, so if you really want to know about yourself, if you really want to know like what you should do in future for yourself, just select yes and have a one-on-one free session, a counseling session with the best counselors in the market. So I guess everyone have selected yes. Or still, if you have any questions, you can write down on the Q&A session or on the chat section. I will directly gonna answer every question of yours right now. Or if you want to have one-on-one session, I can. Okay, someone has question. I thought I was gonna learn Python and full stack development for absolutely free as status on Python Notes Telegram channel. See, you will gonna find everything free over the internet, over the YouTube or many other platforms like Telegram, as you are saying. But see, when we go for some some questions, like when we are learning anything, we got questions. Okay, how you going to get a solution for that question? We need proper mentors. Okay, but the main thing, which is you have to make your own projects. And to make a project, like I guess what is capstone project, in which you're going to make a project from scratch to the deployment level. To make that, you need a proper mentor sessions, you need a proper learning about every tools and technologies, and you only can do that by learning it properly. If you really want to make your own projects, if you really want to get a job, you have to make a good projects, and if you want to have a good knowledge in every technologies, and for that, Telegram channel and YouTube are not enough. If it is enough, every person is going to just learn from those platforms like Telegram and YouTube, right? Guys, if you still have any questions, you can ask. Okay. Okay, so we have another questions. There are professors and teachers in college which can act as mentors. Yes, for you it can. But first of all, I want to tell you, what professors and teachers are. Okay, those are the persons who have learned everything, and they are teaching you everything what they have learned. But what mentors are exactly? What industry mentors are exactly? those are the peoples who have experienced it. Like for an example, if you go for React.js in MERN stack, right? It is a tool, okay? The teacher or professor will only gonna teach you what they have learned, okay? But what a industry mentor is gonna do, he will gonna teach you what he have experienced, what he have exactly had an hands-on experience in that, right? Like for an example, he have done many projects in that, so he will gonna exactly tell you what is benefits, what are drawbacks of that particular things. So there is like huge difference in professor and teachers and the industry mentors, right? I guess you I answered this question. Well, the teachers have experience in industry before they join as teachers. Okay, then it is really good. If they have experience, then I can also say that they are also mentors. Isaac have no questions. Okay, that's really good. Okay, if you think they can guide you in capstone projects, that's really good. But I can still say that, like, over there you can't able to do many capstone projects. You have, like in colleges, you have different subjects. Like if you go for, if you're a computer science student, right, you have to learn Java, you have to learn Python, you have to learn operating systems and many more in brief, in theory and everything. But what we are doing, we are giving you learning of full stack development with code along sessions. Like in colleges, what you are doing, you have theoretical classes also, which is kind of boring. I can say that because I am also, a computer science engineer student. I have learned everything that you guys have learned in the colleges. But over here, when I first came to meet with the mentors, what I can see that they are, giving coding in every sessions. They are teaching you coding in every sessions. They are teaching you about the assessments. They are teaching you about the projects, okay, which is right now required to get a proper job. Why colleges are not good in placing students? Like many of the colleges are just placing as a role of sales, or as a role of some different profiles. But you are there for the particular profile. Like if you are a computer science engineer student, then you should go for just for IT role. But no, that is not happening. Okay, someone questions. Currently, I have finished my first year in the course BSc CS, and I have already done 2 caps. That's really good. If you have done 2 capstone projects, it will really gonna help you in future, man. Okay. Uh, are there handout note copy? See, there are no handout note copies, but what we have, of every session, you will going to have, a recorded form of that also. Okay, if you missed any session, you can watch the recorded. If you want to rewatch that, you can use the recorded. And still, we are also giving you 24/7 doubt portal. Like in a day, if you find any doubt, you can just directly connect with the mentors. One-on-one, you can ask any of the questions if you want to. Okay, and that answer will be really efficient for you also. Do you want to see one of our projects? Yes, I really want to see your projects, man. Okay, guys, we will wait 2 more minutes. Okay, then we will end this session. If you still have any questions, you can ask. If not, you can say no on the chat, or we will gonna end this session. Isaac, no. I guess Isaac is really intelligent. He doesn't have any type of questions. Okay, guys, I can see there are no more questions. Okay, Isaac, you're not intelligent, you are learning. That's really good, Isaac. You are genuine. Okay, Mohan Krishna, you are asking, can I get certificate for this webinar? Okay, I will check up on this. If you are getting a certificate for this, you will surely will get. But if not, I can't assure you about this. Okay, yes, you will get a certificate for this webinar for sure. You will get on your registered email account. Don't worry about that, Mohan. Okay, guys, one more minute, then we will end this session. Welcome, Mohan. Okay, guys, so let's end this session. Okay, I guess every of your doubt is cleared, but still, if you think your doubt is not cleared, we will surely gonna connect with you. Okay, Kavya, I happen to download your app from the Play Store and I see that it is incomplete. Are you guys Kavya, see on the app, like so many things are not mentioned. Just go through the website over there. You will going to see many things, and for sure, we will gonna call you, Kavya. Like our one of our counselor will gonna call you and answer every questions of you. Okay, so okay, let's end this session. Thank you so much, guys. It was a really nice session. Thank you so much, Karan, for this amazing guru class, for this amazing session. So bye bye, guys. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend. Thank you so much.